Hi, thanks for tuning in to another edition of Council Connections. I'm your host, Karen Kobeck, and I'm here. Once again, we are pleased to have Council President Michael Leszcz in our studios. Thank you so much for coming in, sir.
Thanks for the welcome.
All right, so, there's a lot going on in Laurel. We've had a lot of things come down the pike. We finished the town center. We're working on West Side, finishing that up, finished the library. There's a lot going on, but anything that you want to talk about, since you are the at-large council member, we want to make sure that we encompass everyone. So what's happening in Laurel that you'd like your constituents to know?
Well, I think there's many things that are happening that are going to impact city residents and some residents outside the city. The hospital oversight group that's been conducting the various studies in the city has completed its work.
Oh,
and
great.
That's chaired, the oversight group is chaired by Mayor Craig Moe and Dr. Steve Bartlett, who's he's a surgeon from the University of Maryland hospital system. So I was lucky and privileged to head up the subcommittee that was working on philanthropy, giving, volunteers, and patient care. And was very lucky to have a committee made up of citizens from inside and outside the city and some employees of the hospital. And Dr. Percival Singh was the support person from the University of Maryland medical system assigned to work with us. And we completed our report about 7 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I made a presentation to the oversight group. It was accepted. The other 6 groups have finished their reports. They've been presented. And I think that they've presented to the University of Maryland medical system, although you'd have to talk to the mayor about that. And I think that come September, we'll probably hear something out of that.
Okay, great.
And yes, the building that we know as Laurel Regional Hospital is going to go away. Okay. The whole landscape of medical care is changing in this country. They used to go in the hospital if you had a pregnancy. 50 years ago, you stayed in the hospital a week.
Right.
Now, usually you stay in the hospital overnight, unless it's a cesarean. And then there's some restrictions on that. But hospitals, what people don't realize is all hospital payments are dictated by Medicare, Medicaid, and the insurance companies.
Yeah.
It's not up to the individual.
Or to the doctors, really, anymore.
Or to the doctors. And so if you're in the hospital for 2 days, you're called a patient that's admitted for observation.
Okay.
But you're not admitted to the hospital. You're there for observation. More than 2 days, 3 days, then you're an admitted patient. And the question is, who's paying for that? Okay, so what will end up, I think, at the 40 acres, which is the current location of the Laurel Regional Hospital, is an ambulatory center, which would be emergency, some operating rooms, some observation beds. If they do it the right way, from my perspective only, this is not the oversight committee, the campus, and it'll be the University of Maryland medical system taking over from Dimensions, Laurel Beltsville Medical Campus, and I don't know what they're going to call it, but something like that. It would have several buildings. It would have that building. It would have, if we look around Laurel, there's all these, Care First and all that.
Urgent care.
What I call urgent care. And urgent care, when you go to the desk, they want $75 right off the bat. And if they don't get any more, they've paid their costs. When you go to an emergency room, if you don't have insurance or don't have coverage, by the rules, they have to take care of you.
Right.
And it's worse when you've got people that are threatening suicide, because there's this requirement about how many hours you must be admitted for observation. They're not going to let you go home.
Yeah, it's a psych observation, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And it's usually 72 hours. Well, now you're a patient. You're no longer an observation person. So again, it's very complicated, but I think there's an opportunity here. If it's done right, if the University of Maryland medical system does it right when they assume responsibility for dimensions, for the Laurel campus to end up with something that will serve the needs of the Laurel community.
So this could take healthcare to the future.
Well, to the next step.
Right.
And I mean, there's some models. You go up to Bay Health, Kent General Hospital in Dover. They have bought some hospitals, and you might have orthopedic surgery at Kent General in Dover, and then they send you down to one of their subsidiary hospitals for recuperation, because they're set up for recuperation and rehabilitation.
Everything's interconnected.
It's designed to service that need. And we need to do something quick.
Right.
Because Seventh-day Adventist is out of the ground and they're putting steel up. And that's only a few miles away.
Okay.
And I don't think that people, the residents of Laurel, want to have to drive the additional mileage. I mean, I've been in 3 hospitals myself. I've been in Laurel, Howard County, and Mercy. And Howard County is bursting at the seams. They don't have much room left up there.
Right.
And they just renovated their behavioral health unit.
Okay.
And they just did that at Laurel. I think that's another part of the equation we need to pay attention to. The number of people that are exhibiting behavioral health issues is increasing. And it's not just young people and middle-aged people that are, with a lot of stress. You've got elderly people. They start to lose their friends.
Yeah.
They don't have anybody to call on the phone. Sometimes they lose their children. And, they feel lonely.
Yeah.
And it starts to take its toll. So again, I think there's an opportunity with what's happening with UMS taking over, University of Maryland Medical System taking over Dimensions. There's an opportunity to end up with something that will meet the needs of the Laurel residents and the surrounding community, for the next 30, 40 years. That is 40 acres there.
Yeah. It's a lot of space there.
That's correct.
So there's a lot that could be done.
And it's an opportunity to meet those needs. They've got the bariatric, I think it's called the bariatric chamber. They put you in this oxygen-rich environment to heal faster. But that's in a separate building, and I think you're going to see a lot of that in hospital configurations. People need to realize that University of Maryland Medical System now owns more than 10 other hospitals.
Okay.
And it always hasn't been easy for them.
Right.
But if we're going to end up with something that meets the needs of not just Laurel, but the needs of Maryland citizens, I think that's the way it's going to go. I mean, Mercy's an independent hospital, but that's one of the few that are left. And they've been very fortunate, heavy endowments, a couple of new buildings. And again, you go where you can get the service you need.
Right. And we want to make sure that they can get it right up here, because we're in a perfect place right at the tip of Prince George's County, and we can serve so many people.
And people need to realize there was a possibility I was going to have a stent put in when I was at Howard County for my knee operation. And it turns out that Howard County cannot install a stent if it's elective surgery, unless it's an emergency. They were going to have to ship me off up to Johns Hopkins.
Okay.
So certain things can only be done in certain hospitals. People need to understand that. and that's based on what the Maryland Health Commission approves.
Okay,
So again, that's a big issue.
right.
And people need to stay tuned, because I'm sure come September there'll be an announcement. They need to realize that elected officials worked on that. You had Fred Smalls was on the steering committee, Mary Lehman, Jim Rosapep,
Citizens.
myself. There were several. Jocelyn. So the people, the elected officials representing the citizens were heavily involved in that, because it's something that's important to the citizens of Laurel.
That's good.
Okay.
So we got a lot coming down the pike with that, so hopefully we'll hear something very soon. Now, you all were just at MML not too long ago.
We were.
Anything coming out of there that you'd like to let the constituents know?
Well, you know, there's a lot of new technology that you see when you go to MML. You know, porous hard surfaces allow the water to percolate down to the aquifers, equipment that you see. Many of the vendors that we have in the city represent themselves at MML. All the vendor booths were filled, the whole floor.
Oh, good.
The great classes. I try and attend the ethics one every time I go, because you always learn something new. Things involving housing and better government. A little bit of socialization with the reception on the opening night and the dinner. You get to meet other representatives. This was the best attended one they've ever had.
Oh, great.
And it is a great benefit to elected officials and some of our city staff to go to those. I mean, you know, Marty Fleming has presented. Pat Haig has presented there on the risk issues. And it's important to be involved in that. I mean, that leads me into talking about the involvement that your elected officials have in other organizations that impact the city. It's not just MML. Maryland Municipal League, it's the Prince George's County Municipal Association we're members of. We're members of the National League of Cities. We typically, if you're on a steering committee, a national steering committee, you go to those meetings once a year, and then there's another group of meetings in Washington. The mayor's on one of the steering committees. I'm on, and his has to do with first responders and enforcement, law enforcement. And then I'm on the transportation infrastructure and services group. I've been on that for several years. And that talks about roads and talks about trains, the lack of safety with tanker cars. People don't understand. You hear about a train went off the tracks and a tanker car exploded. Those old cars are only single wall, so if you get a leak and it has something that's flammable, we're in trouble.
It can create a lot of problems.
The newer cars are double walled, but they're still not safe enough. And a lot of those tanker cars come through on the Camden line.
Right.
Now, the Camden line, Eddie Ricks and Donna Crary have worked on ensuring that the train stop for the MARC train would continue to happen here in Laurel.
Right.
Because, of course, there's a push to change the flag stop at Laurel Park to a regular stop. And that'll happen, perhaps, if they build like they plan to build up there. But what they're going to do, and I'm sure when Mr. Ricks comes and is interviewed, he'll talk about this, they're going to do away with some of the flag stops that they have. Now, flag stop, somebody's standing out there and waves the train, they stop. And most of those flag stops, people don't wave.
Right.
There's nobody there. People need to remember that 60, 70 years ago, there were special trains that came from Baltimore and Washington to Laurel Park, bringing the people that were going to go to the horse races. They didn't drive out, took train.
They took the train.
Just like there used to be special trains that would come through on MARC at the end of the day going to Camden Yards. And they've stopped those.
Okay.
It's a shame. But anyways, so they worked very hard on that. Part of that is the transit-oriented development. The big parking lot down at the train station and the one on the far side, we're still looking to get some development done there.
Still looking to possibly make a parking garage
yeah,
good.
and some more residential. Because if you look at the C Street flats, that's the whole marketing strategy with those apartments, and they're very small. Was that people park their cars and go get on the train, or they'll work out of their house, telecommuting. And a lot of federal agencies now are going to what they call 100% telework. In other words, the employee may never come into the office except once a month or once every 2 months or once every 2 weeks.
Or just for a meeting, a possible meeting every now and then, yeah.
Yes, and at my agency where I work, we have 100% teleworking employees now. They work out of their home almost exclusively. And again, in the type of service operations that many government agencies are, and dealing with legislated regulations, that works well. Although some of the businesses now are pulling their teleworking employees back in. IBM's a good example, because they've lost the synergy of having employees talk directly to each other.
Right.
So anyways, the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, TIS, as they call it with National League of Cities, it's a very important group, the one that the mayor's been on. Donna Crary was on one of them. Very important to the citizens of Laurel, indirectly. The other thing is we've joined COG, Council of Governments.
Right.
That's we bit the bullet on that one. The mayor is on the executive committee. He's in Baltimore, so it's hard for him to get to Washington. He's asked me to go to those meetings as long as he can't go. And other elected officials and staff people are on different subcommittees. Now, we need to realize that COG controls a lot of the federal monies that come from Washington, for example. They just do. And more importantly, they are discussing right now at COG the issues with Metro.
Okay.
Okay, Metro's got problems, but one of the issues that I raised at the last meeting was, with the increase in telework of government workers, that's where I think they're seeing a partial decrease in the ridership. But people need to realize, Metro in DC is Metro for the people that come to Washington.
Right.
Not just for the workers, but people that come to Washington. You go to New York, I'm from New York. The subway in New York was a subway for the workers. But New York subway's got problems. But we should be, with our metro system, even though it doesn't come to Laurel, a lot of people take the MARC train in, and then they'll get on Metro. We should be in the top 15 in the country, and we're not. So
things to look at.
We need that. They're looking at the financing. It is a tough issue when you're going to tell a community that you don't have a metro stop, but we're going to go ahead and donate to the maintenance of this operation. So again, COG is important.
Yeah, belonging to COG too allows us to apply for a lot of those grants that they have
That's
too,
correct.
which means more money that will help our community and not have to weigh down the budget as much, right?
People don't realize how many grants the city has gotten over the years.
Yeah, we try to report it every chance we get, but we get more than we get out there, I'm sure.
Well, you put out a blurb that you've got a grant from, for law enforcement. So we're going to run a DUI stop. We're going to do seatbelt program. We're going to do crosswalk programs. We get a lot of grant money for that stuff. And that's important. It's important to the citizens, because we like to think we've got very safe streets. I always tell people that I think that new residents come to Laurel for 3 reasons. First of all, they want to feel safe. That's number 1. Number 2, they want to live in a community where there's good fiscal management.
Definitely.
So they've got elected officials and an administration that's very careful about how we spend our money. And the third thing is education. And of course, the issue with education is it's not under our control.
Right.
And I'm not throwing stones at the county school system, but we are truly fortunate in Laurel to have principals that care. The mayor has a principal's breakfast every quarter. The majority of the council members attend those. We interact with the public schools, but more importantly, also the private schools. St. Mary's, Pilati, the Baptist school,
Right.
and then you've got the elementary schools and the high school. Now, the elementary schools, the majority of the students come from Laurel area. The high school, they come from all over. I mean, it's wonderful about the high school that they built that auditorium. The difficulty is it doesn't seat all the students.
Okay.
I mean, I came from a high school that would seat 1,200, and it's, you know, it's an old high school. It's probably 70 years old now, Arundel High School. Used to seat every student in the school, plus some visitors. And I mean, I appreciate what they've built there, but you look at it and you say, geez, this will not seat all the students in our school. So, you know, you wonder, we spent this money, and why didn't we think out of the box in this one? And they've still got temporary classrooms over there.
Do they?
At the high school. They've removed them from Laurel. The principal at Laurel is doing some wonderful things. We've got 2 new playgrounds, relatively new. They planted their garden. I mean, we've got some very, very good educators in the city of Laurel.
And then you've got parents that care too, and that makes a big difference as well.
Parents that care. Now, I mean, my grandson goes to school in Howard County at Bowling Bridge. And I mean, very caring parents up in that school, very similar to Laurel, even though Bowling Bridge has a high percentage of students where their families fall below the socioeconomic line. But the interesting thing about Bowling Bridge is every child that goes to school gets a meal for free in the morning. They want breakfast, they got it.
They get it.
Whether their parents make $5 or $500,000.
Right.
Now that's Bowling Bridge, and again, you know, the opportunity for our children in the city of Laurel. You know, the library's got wonderful programs. Our grandson, we signed up my daughter and grandson for the swimming pool.
Nice.
And he takes lessons there.
Good.
As he will tell you if you talk to him, he's no longer a tadpole, now he's a guppy. And, but he likes to go to the Laurel pools. He likes the interaction with other kids, other children.
There's a lot that goes on around the city of Laurel in the summer. I mean, between the pools and the Parks and Rec programs.
Programs. I mean, somebody asked me what's going on when they put all those volleyball nets up down at the field, and I said, well, I guess they're having a volleyball tournament. Well, don't you know? I said, I don't participate. I said, I just see them batting that ball back and forth. And again, so you got, for the children, you've got the bike parade. They love that. They'll have the dog show.
Yes, looking forward to that coming up.
The 4th of July, I mean, I don't know how many people we had, I don't know, 20, 30,000 people come watch fireworks.
We get tens of thousands, definitely.
Okay. The Main Street Festival is different than other festivals. They just had one up at Maple Lawn, and my wife went up to that one with our grandson and our daughter. It's different. And again, the important thing is there's something for everybody at Main Street Festival time.
Definitely. It's a big variety.
We've got two community centers, the Petro and the Armory. Great exercise equipment, drop-in programs, basketball. So Parks and Rec does really a good job. And
then we've got the emancipation
emancipation.
celebration coming up.
Well, and the important thing this year is they'll be back on the park, because they were doing the library last year, and they had to hold it across the street.
Right.
People need to realize that that is the oldest continuous Emancipation Day celebration in the state.
Mm-hmm.
It's an important part of the history of Laurel. The people that participate from St. Mark's, many of them come from outside of Laurel. Now they've moved away, but there's still a large number that come back every year for that. And there's a great deal to do in the city of Laurel.
Yes. One of the things that's coming up that you do every year, and I don't know if it's planned, but I'm assuming it is, the Back to School Jam.
We're going to do that a little bit differently this year.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Smalls will tell you about that, but we're in the process of getting the supplies bought now.
Okay, good.
We'll be holding an event for those kids that can't afford those supplies to come get them. You'll probably see a cost sharing from the council and the mayor, plus what Mr. Smalls and others are able to get donated.
Okay, good.
I mean,
It's a popular event every year.
well, somebody asked me about it, and I said, I said, of course, my grandson goes to Bowling Bridge, so my daughter has a list of things they need for the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Every school is the same.
Right.
They don't get enough money from the centralized services to buy what they need. For example, these sanitized wipes, clean tables off, chairs. But more importantly, our grandson's left-handed.
Oh,
I didn't realize that a left-handed person using regular scissors can't see what they're cutting.
right. Yeah, it is a different type of scissor you need for a
So-
left-handed person.
So I mean, personally, I've bought scissors from lefties in San Francisco and given them to the teachers,
Right.
and then they hold those 5 or 6 pairs, because it turns out that in his kindergarten class last year, I think there was 5 out of the 15 or 16 kids that were left-handed, and I guess the push is not to make them do something they don't want to do
Right.
with the right hand. So again, we need to realize the schools need all the help they can get to educate our children, and keep our kids safe.
Right.
I went to walk to schools when I went to elementary school in California. I might have walked 5 or 6 blocks. I don't think today my parents would allow me to walk to that school. I mean, I was walking when I was in 1st grade.
Right.
So again,
Yeah, you hear like the parents always joking about how I walked 3 miles in the snow, and no, that wouldn't happen nowadays.
well, again, I think that safety of our children is number one.
Right.
There's too many, as I say, bad guys out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so again, it's important that we keep our kids busy during the summer months too.
Right.
Somebody asked me about, some of these kids don't get meals in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Lars, in some years, has collected snacks, because we've collected them here to give to Lars so that parents can come get them and take something home for their kids to
Right.
eat. And we need to remember there's a lot of single-parent homes, and the parents working.
Yep.
And I always tell people when they ask me, I say, well, I'd be very careful about leaving any child, I think it's against the law,
Yes.
under the age of 13 at home alone.
Mm-hmm.
Because no matter how much you tell them to keep that door locked, kid's inquisitive, child's inquisitive.
And they want to go out and play with their friends.
And somebody's banging on the door. Okay, so be careful, be careful with your children. And again,
Make sure they have a lot of things to do, especially with the parents, with their friends. And the city of Laurel definitely has a lot of those programs that can keep them busy.
That's correct.
And I know the council works day in and day out to make sure that those programs continue, and roads and are fixed when they can be fixed. And I know you work very hard.
All those things we take care of.
Right.
We're only at about a little above 50% in our highway user tax sharing from the county, from the state county. And we need to get back up to, we were getting almost $1 million.
Yeah.
And Public Works has done a good job. We do a lot of add-on road work because the company that we're going to use is already here. So they don't have to mobilize, don't have to bring their equipment in. It's already here. Let's do it. And Rob Free does a great job down there with his staff.
As always.
And getting maximum bang for the buck.
Good.
We've got a great crew that takes care of refuse removal and recycling. Although recycling is not paying hardly anything today. We've been having to pay, but it's good to keep those things out of the dump.
Right.
And the other thing is, people need to realize it doesn't cost you anything to recycle in the city of Laurel. You put it in the green bucket.
We pick it up.
Pick it up. And that includes the fluorescent light bulbs and batteries here at City Hall. Now, big batteries and paints you must take to the county dump. But I've been down there.
Right.
I cleaned out all of our old paint and then took some paint for another resident, had a whole pickup load full, and took it down. I didn't even have to get out of my pickup truck. They took it out.
That's good to know.
And I mean, I was just amazed how fast they were. And they're doing a good job down there of making sure that those things don't get into the dump.
Right.
As you indicated in the beginning, we've got an awful lot of new building going on around the city. Some people will complain, can't we stop it? And as I tell them, you can't stop it, you need to manage it.
Right.
You need to make sure that what we've got going on is what the citizens need or the people coming to Laurel need. I mean, we all went through 2008 and the foreclosure problems, but those are down now in the city of Laurel.
So all that's starting to level out.
I always tell citizens, if you see a house that looks like it's abandoned, pick up the phone and call City Hall.
Right.
Because planning and zoning, we have a requirement that those homes be registered in the city so that we can watch them. If the grass has got to be cut, vandals get in, whatever.
Okay.
So, a lot going on in the
There is
city.
a lot going on, obviously, which is a good thing. You want to see, because that means there's a lot of good growth going on in and around the city, and we want to keep that up.
Well, the idea is that the mayor and the council have agreed that we don't want to increase taxes. We want to maintain services or even improve services within the revenue structure that we have currently. And I mean, Town Center was a good example.
Right.
That was bringing in $100,000 a year in taxes when it was vacant. Go look at it now. The TIF, tax increment financing from Conti Road, is paid off.
Oh, great.
And as our finance director, Michelle, will say, we made money. So the city works very hard to make sure that what we're doing is what the citizens need and it doesn't cost the citizens any more.
Right. You're doing a great job, sir.
We like to think so.
No thinking, it's happening.
Okay.
So thank you very much for coming on. There's nothing else. I mean, that's a lot to take in.
My wife would tell me I've talked too long. But again,
We always love the information, believe me.
but get the other council members down here. And then
Definitely.
I'll come back and see you in a month.
Okay, that's what we
I'll
look forward to.
promise.
I like to
Okay.
hear that.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you so much, sir. Appreciate it.
Right.
All right, well, You heard it here. There's a lot going on in the city, and it's going to continue under the great guidance of the mayor and city council here. So we're going to have another city council connections coming up next month, so be sure to tune in. Have a good one. If you have any information, give Laurel TV a call at 301-725-5300, extension 2208. We have our YouTube channel, the Laurel TV official YouTube. Make sure to check out all of our local programs there. Until next time, I'm Karen Kobeck. Have a good one.